Hello and welcome back to inmr. In today's podcast, I'm going to be talking about how Gary O'Neill has transformed Wolves this season. O'Neill's playing career went under the radar considering he made 214 Premier League appearances, but it's been the total opposite as a manager. He kept Bournemouth up last season, but that wasn't enough to prevent the club replacing him with Iraola. Wolves quickly appointed the young manager and haven't looked back since. They've beaten City, Chelsea and Spurs this season and are currently 11th in the league playing great football. Today I'll be answering the question, how has Gary O'Neill transformed Wolves this season? We'll be taking a look at O'Neill's tactics as well as some key players and games this season and what Wolves fans can expect from their side for the rest of the season. Starting off with his formation or lack of, O'Neill's previously said that systems aren't so relevant anymore, formations are just starting points now. Against Newcastle, where they drew 2-2, the players didn't have a set position or formation to follow, as you can see on screen. Totti, who is number 24, and Semedo, 22, were the starting left back and right back, but as you can see, Totti is much narrower than Semedo is, which clearly shows the positions weren't as straightforward as they initially looked. At its most simple, Wolves have a back four. This meant Aït-Nouri and Neto were part of a midfield four, and when Wolves had possession, this changed. Semedo pushed up, becoming more of a right wing back, allowing Neto to find space to receive the ball and target defenders for a 1v1. Totti, on the other hand, sat and formed a back three with Dawson, number 15, and Kilman, number 23. Both Semedo and Aït-Nouri have key roles in providing width when Wolves are in possession, which allows Neto to drift inside and be more of a threat in front of goal. So Wolves defend in a 4-4-2 and attack in a 3-4-3. They're formationless in the sense that they adapt their shape significantly when in and out of possession, but this is also adapted depending on which opponents they're playing, which is why Gary O'Neill says systems aren't relevant. Their flexible approach even sees Totti and Aït-Nouri play multiple positions per game. Against Fulham, he played left back and left centre back. It goes even further, it's far more complex than what actually seems a simple shift. He steps out into midfield at points as well, against Man City when man marking Foden, and also against Villa when man marking Kamara. And against Spurs, he did the same thing with multiple opponents. This means that Aït-Nouri effectively must play three different positions too. When Totti is a left centre-back, Aït-Nouri is a left wing-back to provide cover on the wings, as you can see here. When Totti is a left-back, Aït-Nouri is a left mid, playing in a more advanced role. And when Totti steps into midfield, Aït-Nouri is a conventional left-back to retain Wolves' backline structure. Pressing, so this is a massive part of Wolves' game as they spend a lot of time defending in their own half under O'Neill in this 4-4-2 shape, but we've also seen them defend on the front foot. His defensive principles at Wolves are the exact same as at Bournemouth, just a little bit higher up the pitch. The use of a back five has helped them form compact blocks that teams struggle to break through, and the extra defender providing support is vital as Wolves have averaged less than 50% possession in the Premier League this season, which was the same when O'Neill was at Bournemouth. When Wolves engage and press, you then see the 4-4-2 shape form as the wing-back closest to the ball aggressively goes to the player in possession. As you can see, that is Bueno here rushing forward. The remaining four shuffle across to limit the opponent's options and support the midfield who are squeezing. In the image on screen, you can also see players like João Gomez and Lamina coming in to restrict the options for the opposition, and that triangle you see is to prevent the ball being played back inside to central areas. In this situation, Burnley's only option, they'd have to play back to goalkeeper, which for Wolves would be a success. As long as they're keeping the ball away as far as possible from the goal, it's a win. It's a very simple philosophy, and Gary O'Neill does have a few of these, but it does require lots of hard work and constant application. Defending and Santiago Bueno's role. So he hasn't been a regular starter this season, but is one for the future of Wolves' defence, and he is showing his talent. O'Neill said that his understanding and fantastic positioning are a few of his many strengths. He also said he's very intelligent and physically good in the air. Last season, before he joined Wolves, he made waves in La Liga with these impressive stats. He was in the top 15% of defenders for true tackles, with a 67.7% win rate, and he averaged 4.6 true tackles for every 1,000 opposition touches. He had an aerial duel win rate of 64%, which highlights his game intelligence, as his desire to win the ball doesn't make him reckless. If he's going in, most of the time he's getting that ball. He's not only good defensively, but also great in transition and useful when in possession. He averaged 7 passes into the final third per 90 last season, which is the top 17% in La Liga, and 4.4 progressive carries per 90, which is in the top 15%. Bueno's game time at Wolves has been limited this season as Kilman, Dawson and Totti have established themselves as a solid trio. Data shows that Bueno prefers short and medium range passes similar to Totti, whereas Kilman and Dawson prefer going long. It's a good mix and balance which suits O'Neill's adaptable approach. Dawson is 34 at the end of the season, so I believe next year Bueno will be a consistent first team performer for Wolves. The can we score mentality. Gary O'Neill's philosophy when Wolves regain possession is can we score? This means that Wolves need to be proactive when they win the ball back instead of keeping possession for the sake of it. The graph on screen shows that after 20 games, Wolves have scored 18 more goals than they did by game week 20 last season. The yellow line shows that they also went a while without scoring last season, which is a lot less common this year. Wolves currently have 43 goals in all competitions this season, which is 4 more than they scored for the entirety of the 2022-23 campaign. Wolves are 6th in the Premier League this season for direct attacks, averaging 1.64 metres per second. When they are going forward, this shows they look to attack at speed once they've won the ball. Out of possession, Wolves are very compact. They aim to use their pace on the counter. This screenshot here shows how quickly they transition. In 3 seconds, they've got the ball from just out of their defensive third and now straight away heading into the opponent's attacking third, all within 3 seconds. But O'Neill's attackers aren't just fast, they're also very good with close ball control, very technical players. Neto and Cunha are strong ball carriers, and as you can see here, Cunha often drops deep and drives forward. He ranks 4th in the Prem with an average carry distance of 14.7 metres, and Neto tops the metric with an average of 15.67 metres. Neto has got 7 assists this season, only Watkins and Salah have more, despite Neto being out for 2 months this season with an injury. Another big improvement for Wolves' attack has been their movement in the final third. Hee-Chan Hwang is a player who's thriving under O'Neill's guidance. He's scored 10 goals so far this season, which is more than his last 3 seasons combined. This image you can see also shows that he's had loads more opportunities in front of goal compared to last season. This is a product of his intelligent movement in the final third under O'Neill. As you can see here, as Neto wins the ball, he draws in the defender. Hwang notices this, anticipates when Neto will play the pass to get a simple shot on goal. This is just one example of how O'Neill has guided players with attacking routines that focus on movement and positioning. Another example is versus Everton. Sarabia is in possession and drags Mykolenko out of position. Then as Sarabia comes inside, Hwang makes the run to pull Keane away. And then here you can see Hwang receives the ball, Keane's way out of position, which makes it really easy for Hwang to put the ball on the plate for Cunha. If Keane stayed in position, he would have cut it out, but Hwang's clever movement meant that he was way out of position, allowing Wolves to score. And when you watch this one in full speed, it's so obvious that it's straight out of the training ground. Adapting to the opposition. We touched on this a little bit earlier with how O'Neill doesn't believe in a set system. He is realistic with tactics and measure them up dependent on the opponent. For example, you take a different approach against City than you would against Brentford. This image here you can see against Man City, O'Neill knows that Wolves won't dominate the game, so he opted for a compact shape with counter-attacks when they win the ball back. On the counter, they overload to provide an attacking edge, and with pressing, O'Neill's side were more strategic, whereas versus Brentford, they took the much more aggressive approach when trying to win the ball back. This graphic shows a much higher press against Brentford, which is why they made double the amount of high regains and counter-pressing recoveries against Brentford than Man City. Wolves took different approaches but got the same result. They won both games as they were able to adapt to their opponents, which goes back to my point earlier that Wolves are a well-drilled side as they can execute different game plans superbly. Wolves recently held Brighton to a 0-0 draw, which showed how quickly they have improved. Last season, Brighton won 6-0, and at the start of this season, they won 4-1. However, this time round, Wolves were a new outfit and held their own against De Zerbi's side. O'Neill took the blame for the 4-1 loss earlier in the season and admitted it would have been more sensible to sit behind the ball, let them dominate and then counter, as they did against Man City. They were still aggressive in this game, but in a much more controlled way. Both sides had brilliant chances to snatch 3 points, and it was a great game, and both sides shared an equal amount of action. Although the result on paper looks really boring, you could see the amount of progress made by Wolves. It's been very impressive, and I'm sure they'll continue to do so as the season goes on. There's still a long way to go, but we are seeing rapid improvements in O'Neill's side. So there you have it. That is how Gary O'Neill has transformed Wolves this season. He's a top manager who will inevitably be at a top club in years to come. He's transformed Wolves into an energetic side playing amazing, expansive football. And after years of struggle, Wolves can finally look up the table rather than down. And in my opinion, a top 10 finish is certainly on the cards. That is where I'm going to end today's podcast. Thank you very much for listening, and I'll see you in the next one.